Two major defense companies are in a battle for the future of Canada's fighter jet fleet. Sweden's Saab Gripen versus U.S. firm Lockheed Martin's F-35s. This comes after Prime Minister Mark Carney ordered a review of Canada's F-35 contract with Lockheed Martin.
Aircraft export deal. It would be these fighter jets. They're called Gripen. They're produced by Sweden's Saab. The Swedish government would essentially be buying them from Saab and then supplying them to Ukraine. And the order calls for
power in the sky rarely shifts without warning, yet this time the signal came from an unexpected place. While NATO keeps its eyes locked on rivals beyond Europe, a quieter disruption has been taking shape inside the alliance itself. Military planners started circling an uncomfortable idea after a series of exercises and evaluations raised eyebrows. Air dominance may no longer belong only to massive budgets or tightly controlled platforms. Sweden, a country known more for caution than confrontation, brought forward a fighter designed to operate when everything goes wrong. The JS-39 Gripen was built to fly from rough roads, survive constant pressure, and remain operational without outside permission. That combination forced NATO insiders to rethink assumptions about control, survivability, and political leverage in modern air warfare. When a smaller nation can challenge established hierarchies with design choices instead of raw spending, priorities begin to shift. Why did this aircraft trigger concern inside NATO circles? What does its performance suggest about future alliances? And who truly controls the skies when independence becomes the deciding factor? NATO's air power has long been shaped by a quiet assumption that strength in the sky depends on unity, standardization, and leadership flowing outward from Washington. Most Allied air forces operate American aircraft for a reason that goes beyond performance charts or marketing. Shared platforms mean shared logistics, shared training pipelines, shared weapons integration, and shared software updates that move through American-controlled systems. The F-16 and F-18 established that model, and the F-35 took it further by tying mission data, electronic warfare libraries, and continuous software evolution into a tightly managed multinational network. Coordination becomes smoother when everyone flies the same jet and answers to the same technical architecture, but that convenience carries an often unspoken cost. Dependence becomes baked into daily operations, and strategic freedom narrows quietly over time. Against that backdrop, Sweden approached air combat from a completely different starting point. Its planners never expected protected megabases to survive the opening phase of a major conflict. They assumed runways would be cratered early, fixed command centers targeted quickly, satellites degraded or jammed, and supply lines disrupted before the first day ended. Instead of asking how to dominate the air in ideal conditions, Saab asked how a fighter could keep operating when nearly everything fails. That mindset shaped the JS-39 Gripen from the ground up, prioritizing survival, persistence, and autonomy over spectacle or prestige. The aircraft was built to disperse, hide, relocate, and fight, while cut off from centralized support, reflecting a belief that the opening 72 hours of war would decide everything. That philosophy shows up in practical details that often get overlooked. Gripen can operate from ordinary highways rather than relying on large airbases. It can be refueled and rearmed by a team of 6 conscripts in under 10 minutes, allowing it to move quickly and remain unpredictable. Its systems are designed to function without constant satellite support, using distributed command structures rather than centralized control rooms. These choices make the aircraft less glamorous on paper, but far harder to suppress in practice. NATO planners were already aware of these design principles, and they already raised eyebrows. What caused real unease came later during multinational exercises that attracted little public attention and even less publicity. In those exercises, Gripen did not outperform larger fifth-generation aircraft by stealth or raw power. Instead, it excelled in availability. While more complex jets cycled back to base for maintenance, software verification, secure data uploads, and climate-controlled hangars, Gripens kept launching again and again. In high-attrition simulations, Swedish squadrons generated more sorties per day than aircraft that cost several times as much. That metric matters deeply in modern warfare. Air superiority is not only about sensor fusion or radar cross-section. It is also about which aircraft can stay airborne when pressure mounts, and infrastructure begins to collapse. An aircraft on the ground contributes nothing, no matter how advanced it may be. This outcome forced planners to confront a reality they rarely discuss openly. Modern fighters are as much software platforms as they are airframes. In the case of the F-35, mission data files and certain software updates flow through multinational systems under American oversight, with approval required for specific configurations. That structure reflects alliance trust, but it also introduces political considerations into wartime operations. Gripen operates under a different model entirely. Sweden controls its source code, its mission software, its electronic warfare libraries, and its weapons integration timeline. There is no external authority capable of withholding updates or limiting operational use in a crisis. That level of national control unsettles centralized doctrines because it demonstrates that modern air power can function without external permission. Once that example exists, other countries begin to ask uncomfortable questions. NATO's traditional air doctrine assumes large defended bases, centralized headquarters, and protected data links. Gripen assumes none of that will survive intact. Its operational concept spreads aircraft across forests, road networks, and dispersed nodes that communicate without relying on a single vulnerable hub. In war games, suppressing Gripen squadrons proved exceptionally difficult because there was no single target capable of paralyzing the system. Destroying one element accomplished little, since operations continued elsewhere. That runs counter to decades of planning built around striking centralized command structures to achieve rapid dominance. No official condemnations followed these exercises, and no public denials appeared in press briefings. Silence filled the gap. The reason was not fear of confrontation, but recognition of a deeper issue. Gripen does not threaten NATO by opposing it militarily. It threatens NATO by demonstrating an alternative path. Countries observing these results saw that defending airspace does not require a trillion-dollar ecosystem or complete integration into a single command architecture. That realization challenges centralized power at its core because it weakens the assumption that there is only one viable way to build modern air forces. This shift became especially relevant as procurement decisions began to intersect with domestic politics. Canada emerged as a focal point in that conversation. Ottawa committed in 2023 to acquire 88 conventional takeoff and landing F-35A fighters to replace an aging fleet of Boeing FA-18A Hornets. Funds were obligated for the first 16 aircraft, but the remaining balance remains open to debate. A trade war launched by US President Donald Trump, combined with veiled statements touching on Canadian sovereignty, triggered a political backlash within the governing Liberal Party and among the public. That environment transformed a technical procurement into a broader discussion about independence, leverage, and economic return. Canada's Industry Minister Melanie Joly made that shift explicit in an interview with Bloomberg News published on January 5th. She stated that Ottawa would press Lockheed Martin to expand its Canadian workforce and deepen its industrial commitments as part of any deal for additional fighters. Around 30 Canadian firms currently supply Lockheed's global F-35 assembly operations, employing roughly 2,000 workers domestically according to the Royal Canadian Air Force, and reporting by CBC. Joly indicated that this footprint should grow if Canada proceeds with further purchases, including expanded research and development activity and greater access to intellectual property control. A meeting between Joly and Lockheed executives is planned later this month, although the company declined to comment on the specifics. Lockheed emphasizes that more than 110 Canadian companies have contributed to the F-35 supply chain over the program's lifetime, with each aircraft containing approximately 3.2 million Canadian dollars, or $2.3 million, in components produced in Canada. The company notes that this contribution occurs before Canada receives its first aircraft and highlights a projected 15.5 billion Canadian dollars in industrial value spanning production and sustainment from 2007 to 2058. That figure includes Ottawa's original commitment for 88 jets and could grow further as Canada defines its sovereign sustainment requirements. Globally, the F-35 program remains massive. There are currently 1,270 aircraft in service worldwide, with plans for a total fleet of 3,600 across 20 countries. No serious planner disputes its technological depth. The aircraft offers unmatched sensor fusion, advanced networking, and dominance in environments where centralized command, secure data links, and protected infrastructure remain intact. Gripen is not positioned to replace the F-35 across NATO, and no credible analysis suggests otherwise. That reality makes the current moment more significant, not less. Saab's re-entry into Canada's reopened competition underscores that point. Although the Gripen EF placed second to the F-35A in evaluations published by CBC, Saab has returned with an aggressive industrial proposal. The company has floated the possibility of building a new assembly line in Canada to support additional Gripen production for the Royal Canadian Air Force and potential operators such as Ukraine. It has also offered to locate assembly of its GlobalEye airborne early warning and control aircraft in Canada, leveraging the Global 6000 and 6500 business jets already manufactured in Ontario by Bombardier. In December, Saab Chief Executive Mikael Johansson told Flight Global that Canadian officials have asked detailed questions about how a Gripen deal could create sovereign capability. Those inquiries include job numbers, collaboration with domestic firms, and the transfer of technical data related to aircraft design and production. Johansson confirmed that Saab is prepared to transfer that data and stated that a combined deal involving Gripen fighters and GlobalEye aircraft could create more than 12,000 jobs in Canada. He also noted that while Gripen did not win the original competition, it met essential requirements, including the ability to perform missions under the joint US-Canada North American Aerospace Defense Command. Air Force leadership has been clear about strategic goals. Shortly after assuming command in August, Lieutenant General Jamie Spicer-Blanchet told Flight Global that transforming the Royal Canadian Air Force into a fifth-generation force remains a priority. That statement reflects recognition of the F-35's strengths, not denial of them. The debate unfolding in Canada is not about declaring one aircraft superior in every scenario. It is about weighing operational performance against sovereignty, economic return, and political flexibility in a world where infrastructure vulnerability can no longer be ignored. This is where Gripen's broader impact becomes clear. It exposes a vulnerability in the assumptions behind centralized air power rather than in any single platform. The F-35 represents a model built on shared software, integrated mission data, defended bases, and deep political alignment with the United States. Gripen represents decentralized operations, national control over upgrades, dispersed basing, rapid relocation, and independent wartime decision-making. When air forces observe that a smaller, cheaper aircraft can remain operational after infrastructure collapses while retaining full national authority, the idea of a single universal solution begins to weaken. That shift carries consequences for NATO. Mixed fleets become more attractive than standardized ones. Independent doctrines start to coexist with unified command structures. Political leverage over allied air forces diminishes as alternatives prove workable. Gripen does not end the F-35 program, but it challenges the belief that there is only one acceptable path forward. The future begins to look distributed, complex, and harder to control from a single center. That complexity unsettles planners who built careers around predictability and integration. Gripen's performance in simulations did more than demonstrate resilience. It redefined success by showing that persistence and autonomy can outweigh technical supremacy when systems are stressed. Once that realization takes hold, it cannot be reversed. The real shock was not that the aircraft performed well, but that it revealed a truth many hoped would remain unspoken. The most dangerous weapon is not always the most advanced one, but the one that cannot be politically controlled. Sweden did not confront NATO with force or rhetoric. It presented evidence, and evidence changes minds in ways speeches never can. That is where the story stands today, with questions lingering and decisions delayed. Canada weighs sovereignty against integration. NATO weighs unity against flexibility. Air power doctrine stands at a crossroads shaped by proof rather than theory. That tension is still unfolding, and its outcome will shape procurement, alliances, and operational planning for years to come. That's all we've got for now. If you want to stay in the loop, make sure to subscribe and tap that notification bell. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. In the meantime, check out any of the videos popping up on screen. There's lots more where this came from.